All right, Steve, thanks so much for joining today. And you've had such an incredible career and life, and the audience are people who have an interest in cancer, looking for inspiration, resilience. And so we thought we'd just have a conversation about the years and some of the memories. And I know you're a very modest and humble person, but feel free to tell us about some of your accomplishments. But I'm curious. I'm guessing that you probably were on a horse almost as soon as you could walk. Is that right?
Well, really, yeah. When I was born in Covington, Kentucky, and then my father was a blacksmith, so he decided he liked chewing down in the warmer climes of the fairgrounds in New Orleans, and so we lived down there for about till I was about almost 5, and we lived on a farm briefly in Oklahoma. And at that point, I was on ponies. I was about 2, really.
Really?
Originally they just set me on it, and then eventually I could. They were good ponies, so I would go riding around a little bit, and so I was always comfortable around horses. I always loved animals.
Uh-huh.
And we moved back to Kentucky when I was 5, and we had a 40-acre farm, and my parents always had a mare or 2.
Uh-huh.
We would breed. They'd breed racehorses, and we'd foal them out right there. And
wow.
We got to see them right from the beginning. It was really cool. We also had chickens, goats. We had all kinds of dogs, cats, the whole 9 yards. And so I was always around animals. I always loved being around them. And but really, when I was young, I was a pretty athletic kid.
Yeah,
strong. I wasn't big, but I was quite strong, and I was a good wrestler.
Is that right?
But I really wanted to be a football player. I had dreams of because I like contact sports, and I really wasn't tall enough for basketball, although I played basketball and baseball, but I just wasn't. Those were I was better at football. I liked it, and I had dreams of being a football player someday, possibly. And then I got on the 7th grade Pee Wee team, and after playing one summer with all these guys that were, running me down, I realized that I needed to start thinking about something else.
When one door closes, another one opens.
Yep, that's right. It's true.
That's awesome. Yeah, and over the years, that bond with horses, I'm sure, has been amazing. Are there some particular horses that stand out?
Well, obviously, Affirmed, who I won the Triple Crown on, was an amazing horse. The best I rode ever. Just because he was so adaptive. People always to try to explain the kind of horse he was. I compare him to a Michael Jordan because he could adapt. When they could start blocking his jump shot, he'd do a fadeaway, or he learned how to adjust and adapt to things, and he was just really smart. He really responded well to small. People probably didn't realize I was asking him to run, or saying, come on, because it was just like a touch with him. He was so sensitive, and but he wanted, had a heart of a lion and would give everything, and really. Which I think is part of why people love horse racing.
Yeah,
they love to see the courage and the fighting in the horse.
Yeah.
When you get in, and that was what was great about that year, because there was another great horse, Alydar, was born in the same year, and we had great rivalry and a lot of great duels, and obviously in the big races.
Neat. How'd you get introduced to Affirmed?
Well, I was riding in New York, and I was doing very well. And I had my first bad fall, and I was injured at Belmont on opening day of the spring Belmont meet, early May, and so I was out for they told me I was going to be out for 3 months. Well, a month from the day that I fell, I was riding my first race back because I was so young and just and obviously anxious to get back, but I healed really well because. When you're 16, things heal. And so I rode, the first horse I rode back was a horse called Little Miracle, which was a good, well-named horse to come back on. And just so happened he was a half brother to Affirmed, and I was riding him for Les Barrera. Les Barrera had this horse, but it was no connection with the Wolfsons who bred Affirmed. They had, in the meantime, I guess, bought the dam and bred him to his stallion, and Affirmed was produced. So anyway, I went on that horse, Little Miracle, and so while I had been gone, Affirmed had run 3 or 4 times. He broke his maiden at Belmont under an apprentice named Bernie Gonzalez. Then the next time he ran in a stakes race, and Angel Cordero rode him and won on him. Angel Cordero rode him in another stake right after that and just got beat by Alydar the first time they ever met, or the second time they met. The first time was when Affirmed won that first stake, but Alydar ran first time out ever in a stakes race. That's how good they thought he was.
Wow.
So anyway, when I got back, and then we soon moved up to Saratoga for the summer, they were looking for a rider for the Sanford Stakes, and they obviously asked Angel Cordero first. He thought he had a better horse.
Yeah.
Because Affirmed was a little bit of a relaxed, at that time particularly too. And nobody really, I think, realized how good he really was. And then they obviously also asked Lafitte Benkai, who rode him out in California, and he didn't. It was a long journey, and it was only at that time a $45,000 stake race. So I got asked to ride him, and I rode him and won on him. And of course, people say, when did you know he was good? It wasn't that day. I mean, I knew he was a nice horse, but that day he kind of, he hung out a little bit and whatever. He won, but he didn't impress me that day as the horse that I eventually knew he was. Wow. The second race was the Hopeful Stakes. It's the first big 2-year-old race of the year up at Saratoga. And Alydar was in the race, and when Alydar came to, I was sitting just off the pace, and I was easing to the lead, and then here came Alydar, and like when he came to me, we took off like 2 jet rockets.
Really?
I mean, I'd never had that feeling on a horse before of that acceleration, and we ended up beating him by 3/4 of a length, and that was one of the first of many meetings that we had, when I was riding Affirmed against Alydar.
Neat. That gives you goosebumps. That's wild. That's neat. Is Affirmed still living?
He's not. No, he passed away in 2001. I mean, horses, he lived to be 26, but he probably would have lived to be 30 or 30-something because he was just that kind of, but he injured an ankle, and so they operated on it. And while he was protecting that leg, he was putting more weight on his other leg, and he foundered in that foot. And once that happened, the Wolfsons had him put down. He was 26, but I mean, they didn't want him to suffer at all. Yeah, rightly so. But he lived a great life. Everywhere he went, people loved him. He was very, they loved his intelligence and his. He hated birds. He'd chase birds around the paddock.
Really?
And, he had his, his little things, and but he was a magnificent horse.
Speaking of birds, did I read that your father was a farrier?
He was, yeah.
How about that? What a neat thing that is. I mean, hunting for 3,000 years of telling.
Oh, no. He was a farrier. That's what they call blacksmiths.
Oh.
Farrier is, that's another word for,
Okay.
No, not a bird person. He liked birds, but he liked shooting them, I think, more than anything. But he was a blacksmith, and
Gotcha.
He was one of the best. He's in the Hall of Fame for that, and he's he was one that probably gave me my love for the horses because of his love for it. He loved racing. He loved horses. He loved what he did. And once I got into it, just kind of seeing that, kind of made me realize all the different parts of racing. Like like he would always say to me, you could live 6 lifetimes and never learn everything that there is to learn about horses.
Wow.
I'm sure just like what your medicine is the same, obviously, and a lot of things are the same. But it's so true that there's just so many aspects of it.
And you're actually Sports Illustrated Sportsman of the Year before the year with the firm, weren't you?
Yeah, 77. Yeah, wow. I got a good story about that. That's funny.
Because who's the competition that year?
Well, so I won it in 77. The Muhammad Ali was second, and and Reggie Jackson was third. And so, this is just funny. Years and years down the road, I ended up going to a card show up in Baltimore. And after I got done signing my cards, and it was a huge show. They had football players, basketball players, baseball players, hockey players, World Series trophies. And it was all there. I mean, it was amazing. It was just wild to see it. And I started walking around after I was done signing, just checking stuff out. And then I looked over and I saw Reggie Jackson there, and I thought, I never met him. I'd like to say hi. So I walked up to him, not even thinking about what I would, but I just said, "Hey, Mr. Jackson, Steve Cauthen, nice to meet you. I used to ride in New York when you were hitting all the home runs for the Yankees and blah, blah, blah." And he was really nice. And then he called this guy over. He said, "Jim, I want you to meet this guy." He goes, "Jim, this is Steve Cauthen." He said, back in 1977 and 1973, I had 2 chances to win Sports Illustrated Sportsman of the Year. He said, the first time I got beat by a damn horse, Secretariat. And he said, the second time, this little so-and-so beat me. I said, anyway, it was just funny. Anyway, small world. And like you said, I didn't know I got under his skin that much. But he was very nice, and that was funny.
And how early did you feel like this career was really going to take off? When did you feel like it was really going to go?
I think I read it right when I was 12 is when I decided I thought I wanted to try to be a jockey. And I read 2 books. I read a book called I Ride to Win by Eddie Arcaro, who was another Northern Kentucky great jockey. And I read another book about an English jockey, Sir Gordon Richards. And but the first book really intrigued me. That's why I read the second. And by the time I got done with these 2 books, I was like, man, this is what I want to try to do. I think I can do it, And I went to my dad, and he offered to help me. But I spent 2 summers working on farms, breaking horses. That really helped me because I was supposedly teaching them, but I think they were teaching me a lot more than I really learned a lot being around them because I started trying to think like a horse, try to understand how is this horse, perceiving what I'm asking him to do. I want him to, in the end, what I really want is I want him to want to do what I'm trying to ask him to do instead of trying to make him do it, And I think it, that served me well really through my career because, I think that's why I did have I had good hands, I think, which is how you communicate with a horse. But also, I'm being empathetic and thoughtful to how this horse is perceiving all this craziness going around, especially Derby Day and all that kind of thing. So, just trying to, think like a horse.
Wow. In the Triple Crown, so the pressure must have been mounting. You win the first one, you win the second one, and then the third. I can only imagine the pressure you must have been feeling.
Yeah, that was. I've often said it. I think that was the longest 3 weeks of my life because. Obviously, going in, I was, just thankful to have a chance to ride in the Kentucky Derby and, have what I thought was a chance. After I won that, went to the Preakness thinking the same thing. I knew, all the time I had the utmost respect for Alydar. I knew he was going to be tough to beat every time, but, we won that. And we won the Derby, luckily, comfortably enough, and we won the Preakness, although it was a much tougher race. I still, knew I always had him. But then, like I said, the 3 weeks, more as much as anything, it's the worldwide. I was getting interviewed by Japanese newscasters and Australian newscasters. The whole world was kind of, you could feel the whole world's looking in on this thing, and I'm thinking, I really, don't want to mess this up. At least I don't want it to be my fault that we get beat. If we get beat fair and square, that's the way it is. But, and I think that's what really gave me the most satisfaction out of the whole thing. Besides the fact that I think it drew a lot of people to the sport, this great rivalry, but I knew in my heart that we couldn't make a mistake and win the race. And after winning the race by that much, I realized that we didn't make a mistake and we couldn't. And so, I felt very a lot of pride for myself, the horse's heart, because he was kind of halfway. I mean, at the 8th pole, he was tiring, and I could feel him, struggling. But when I hit him left-handed for the first time ever, he responded, and he got his head back in front. And had we gone another furlong, we probably would have still beat him because, we had him. It was just like we conquered.
Wow.
We got that mental conquering.
So you were saving the left hand for a special occasion.
I kind of was because I took for lots of reasons. I wasn't the left hand at that stage of my career. I still wasn't as good at it as I was with my right. So I specifically remember switching over, thinking, "Don't drop it." And once it was in my hand, I was like, "Okay." And the horse, like I said, he responded, and it was a great feel. It was people always say, "What did you feel when you passed the line?" And I said, "Well, the first feeling was relief."
Yeah.
And then the second thing was like an immediate sense of pride for the horse and for myself of like we made it through, and it was just it's as good as it gets. I've never I rode for 14 more years or longer, a little longer than that after, and I never rode in another race as good as that.
I'll bet.
Although I rode in some great races, and one race is great. I won the first leg of my other Triple Crown, the one I won in England on a filly, by that much, like a smaller margin. And then, she won her next 2 races pretty comfortably. But that race is like everything that like I said, when people look at horses, they want to feel what they'd like to reflect on them, how they'd hopefully feel inside, to have that courage, to have that determination, and Affirmed and Alydar showed that in all 3 of those races, but particularly the Belmont.
You can learn a lot from horses, can't you?
You can. And they always say the outside of a horse is good for the inside of a man, and I think that's a true statement. Seems like that's why a lot of these programs that they use horses for autistic kids and Down syndrome kids and just people that are coming back from, they've had loss, people that have lost loved ones. They do these therapies with horses, and somehow horses connect with you.
Yeah. And even though it's an individual sport, it's a team though, isn't it? And talk about the team.
Yeah, I mean, I was part of 2 great teams in my career. Obviously the Affirmed team with Laz Barrett, the trainer, the Wolfsons were the owners. We had great people that worked for Laz. Tutu was his exercise boy who knew him. Juan was his groom who basically slept with him if he would, if he thought there was any issue that somebody might be coming into, he'd spend the nights with the horse in the stall. It was just a great team, and you get confidence, from those people because I mean, I wasn't with him 24/7, so but I would see Juan. He'd give me the thumbs up. We're good to go, boss. It's all good, and that's how you go into something with knowing at least I know my horse is in good shape. So then the rest is up to making good decisions and trying to get the job done. But we had great teams, and then I had a great team in Europe when I rode for Henry Cecil. We had a amazing team, and like the 6 years I rode for him, the first year I rode for him, we won 4 of the 5 classics. Wow. And then I won 10 English classics for him. I probably altogether in England, Ireland, and France. We won, I think, 17 or 18 classic races.
Wow.
And we had 6 years, 6 of the best years that you could imagine. So, it was just, I've been parts of some great outfits, and it's you can't do it by yourself. It makes me laugh when people say I'm a self-made man because nobody is, everybody has to have help along the way from your, parents or your just people, you gotta be guided a little bit in what you're trying to achieve.
Yep. Is European racing a lot different from American racing?
It's different in the sense of, like here in America, when they came, they most of the tracks are left-handed. They're, dirt. If they have a turf course, it's on the inside, and it's, usually tighter. Like in England and, 300 years ago, they basically staked out these proper, this is the course, back in the day, they had these little bushes, and that would be your guideline, right? There was no rails or anything like that. And when I actually first went over in 1979 at Newmarket, it was the bushes up until the final 3 furlongs. So, which was like crazy to me.
That's why
I couldn't fathom that really, but it's just the way it was. Eventually, they put rails up all the way, but I mean, they were staked out over this property, and like literally to this day, they're the same courses, right? Now they have rails and stuff, but like in Epsom, it's like it's like a horseshoe sort of, and you start out breaking uphill and you bear to the right, and then you go back to the inside rail. It goes up a hill, then it levels off at the top, and then you go about 3 furlongs, and then it starts a dip, a drop down, a gradual drop, and then a steep drop called Tattenham Corner into the stretch. And the stretch is like this. It's cambered to the inside. Wow. And so horses tend to want to lean to the inside. So, it can be, you can have like if you have a horse that's starting to lug with you, not only are you having to deal with that, but you're also having to deal with the natural fact that the camber makes you go in. So
that's wild.
It's definitely different. The idea is the same, get to the wire first. But it's definitely a different setup. And of course, all the courses are different. They're left-handed, right-handed, figure of 8. They've got a figure of 8 at Windsor. Their Newmarket is 1.25 miles, absolutely dead straight. The Champion Stakes, one of the big races, and you might have 20 horses in it, is 1.25 miles straight. But, again, there's undulations all through the course.
That's wild. In between the countries, do you have a single favorite course?
I have single favorite courses in each country. I mean, like here in America, probably Saratoga would be my favorite. I like Belmont too, obviously. That was a great. In England, I loved York, up in the north of England. I loved it mainly because it was a very fair track, but I also loved it because of the atmosphere there. The people loved it. They were Yorkshire farmers, and and it was a great atmosphere. And then in France, I loved Chantilly, which is the track that runs right in front of the palace, the king's palace at the time. And I went to the stables there, which are unique because they're made in marble, because the king thought he was going to be reincarnated as a horse. So he built really nice stables.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That's wild. And you got to know Queen Elizabeth?
I did. I rode for her. I didn't get to know her that well. I got to know the Queen Mother really well.
Really?
Her mother. She was a really fun lady. Would put you at ease right away.
Yeah.
And Dick Francis was one of her jockeys. The guy who wrote books, Dick Francis, the writer, was her jockey and rode for her in the Grand National. And he was like 20 lengths in front, like can't lose. After he'd already jumped the last fence, and his horse hit like a weird patch of ground and spread eagled and went like almost came to a stop, and then ended up getting beat. But anyway, obviously after he had success at riding and stuff, he would have these dinners for her, and so I got to meet her and get to know her quite well, and she loved the racing and just loved the sport. Princess Anne, I did a lot of charity work with her. They're very nice people. It's just I feel sorry for them because they live in the goldfish.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's really, I can't imagine that life. I mean, I'm sure there's a ton of good things. Obviously there are, but it's a weird, different sort of life.
No kidding. And when it comes to bloodlines and horses, humans, certainly there's the athletic families, but fairly often great athletes come that nobody really expected. In horse racing, it doesn't seem to happen as much. It seems like bloodlines are so important.
They are. I mean, it's, again, there's, 23, 46 chromosomes in a human being or a horse or whatever. And like every time, like, so I've seen full brothers and sisters that look nothing alike. One of them can't run a jump. The other one's a champion. It's so the mixture of the chromosomes is, and obviously you can breed the best of the best, and not not get anything. Some brood mares that are really great brood mares, I mean, and there's different theories of why, but they don't become, they're good racehorses, but they don't become good brood mares because maybe they have too many male hormone or, too much male testosterone. I don't know what it is, but some fillies that haven't become good racehorses become good brood mares. But it is bloodlines, I mean, you do find that it does run along bloodlines, and like you might skip a generation, there's all kinds of different things that happen. It's hard to breed a daggone good horse, I'll put it to you that way. It's a lot of work and a lot of, good fortune. But I do think that besides the bloodlines, a lot of it has to do with how you care for them after they're born. Helping with their, obviously some of them naturally have a good mind, but, it can be improved, given the more you give them confidence, the better they tend to react to humans and to performing for, whatever you're asking them to do.
And are there some complete surprises, horses that could come out of nowhere?
Yeah, I mean, there's horses like Mind That Bird that, won the Derby, the Kentucky Derby at 70-1 or 60-1, whatever it was, and came, on a horse trailer from Texas, or, he'd run in some, and he, but he obviously he was a very good, nice horse, but to imagine that he could win the Derby, which is really one of the toughest races in the world because of the 20-horse field, like some of the courses in Europe where they have 30 or 40, 20, 30 horses running. The courses are so much wider. They're built for that kind of, and I mean, America, you can barely get 20 horses across the track, and then they're all going running to that first turn. It's like a funnel. Somebody's, eventually somebody's getting squeezed out. And if you get by the first turn, then you got a chance. But it's not that easy.
And do you like watching it these days? Has the sport changed much over the years?
I love watching. I'm probably, I enjoy it just as much now, if not more in some ways, as I did, because being a breeder, it's like when those horses that I bred or have any connection to, it's almost, they're like my kids, it's like, I know I had something to do with them getting there. And, it's changed, but it's, some for the better, some for the worse. It's just like everything. It's one of the big problems we have is trying to get new fans, trying to keep, because there's so many other things that people can do, and some of them are a lot easier to learn because you learn them in school. You learn basketball, football, baseball in school. There's no horse riding classes at most schools. So to connect with horses is a thing that we have to work harder on trying to do, and I think they're starting to realize that you got to start with the young kids at an early stage, and that's one of the reasons why, like in England and in Ireland, and that there's so much more interest because they have pony club. Everybody has some connection to horses in some way. I mean their kids grow up riding ponies, and so much more than here in America as a whole. But it's a great sport. It's a beautiful sport, and like you said,
are you riding these days?
I actually the last time I rode, I broke my back.
Really?
It was about 4 years ago. I broke some yearlings that spring, and I had gone down to see one of my other horses at a trainer that another trainer had broken for me, because I had 6 horses. I broke 4 of them. He broke 2 of them. And so I was going to see her gallop, and of course the jockey who was supposed to come get on her didn't show up. So I said, I got my boots in the back. I'll get on her. And I did, and she, it wasn't any big deal. We went out, we were jogging her. Everything was going great. I was real happy with the way she was acting. And anyway, we set off to gallop just across, up this grass field, and she started, bucking a little bit, which was no big deal. And my wife and somebody else were over here taking, watching us and taking some pictures. And I thought if she ducked, she's going to duck away from him. Well, she ducked. She got done bucking, she went that way, and I just kind of got, lost for a second. And I knew if I tried to hang on, I'd probably get hurt. So I just let go, and I went ahead and fell off, but I landed real hard. And I was what, 61, I guess, at that time, and I ended up with a compressed fracture in my 12th vertebrae and cracked a rib, and I just thought, I'm too old to be messing around doing this with young horses. I can ride anything really. This is no different, but it's just when you get hurt and you're older, you don't heal as quick, and sometimes it could be a long term thing that bugs you for the rest of your life. So so I haven't ridden for about 4 years, but up till then I was riding.
And any advice for young people relative to passion, and when people, for instance, I know a guy who, when he was in fourth grade, they went around the room, and the teacher asked what they're going to be, and one kid's going to be a fireman, so he's going to be an engineer, and this kid says he's going to play in the NFL, and the whole class died laughing, and he wanted to play in the NFL. Yeah. But sometimes you get these passions, and it's just not going to happen for whatever reason. What do you think in terms of advice for kids that, in terms of finding a passion and then if it doesn't work out, how you move on?
Yeah, well, I would have to say that was, happened to me, because my passion early on was wanting to be a football player, but, I tried everything. I think most people hopefully get a opportunity to try different things. And, I look back to what my dad said. He said, if you can find something that you love to do, you'll never have to work another day of your life. And that's, it's got to be terrible to go to work thinking, God, I hate this job. But that never happened to me, because I ended up finding something that I loved. And, as it's turned out, it's been a lifelong thing, not because there's so many different parts of it. I would just say, try different things, and one of the, like I said, read books, because reading those books really is what triggered my imagination to think, I want to try to do that, and I think I can if I work hard enough at it. And believe me, the only way to get good at anything is to really focus and work hard at it. Jack of all trades, master of none doesn't really do anybody any good. You kind of have to decide what you really want to try to do, and then stick with it.
Yeah, and with people that go through disease of cancer, and them or their loved ones, you were constantly inspired by the courage that people show. And in terms of the importance of resilience, so I'm sure that you got knocked down and kept coming back. Anything come to mind in terms of rougher patches in the racing career that you came back from?
Well, when as I'll tell you too, I want to mention this. When my first bad fall was in New York, and I was so I was 16 years old. I looked like I was about 10. So when they took me to the hospital, they put me in the children's wing.
Really?
And they put me in the children's wing, and I was on the cancer floor. And after a day, when I kind of came to, and as I was actually unconscious for about 10 hours during that time, when I came to and I started feeling just a little bit better, the nurse said, the kids down the hall been watching you, because I was winning a lot of races, and I was in the papers, and I guess the kids read the papers. I don't know, but they said and I was on the news a lot, I guess, and they said they'd love to meet you, and I said, sure, I'll do it. So I went down there, and you talk about these poor kids, like some of them, they had various amounts of time left, but first thing they did was come up to me and say, Steve, don't worry, you're going to be okay, and you're going to be back. They were basically trying to take care of me, and it's touched me so much. I mean, like you said, I'm always enjoy doing anything I can do for kids things, because like you said, you talk about bravery and just not the lack of self concern, more worrying about me. And so anyway, that was a big thing. But as far as when one of the biggest things that happened to me was when I went through my bad streak. I fractured my knee. I mean, like literally, I won the Triple Crown in June, and I had a bad fall at Saratoga in August, and I was off for 7 weeks I had fractured my knee. And when I came back everything seemed to be going wrong. I ended up, went out to California following Affirmed, and I went through a 110 race losing streak. And, just like all of a sudden the people who were telling me how great I was were saying I was a has-been, washed up jockey, and it was tough. But, as you say, when a door closes, a window opens, and I got the opportunity to go to Europe, and it turned out to be, I thought about it strongly, but eventually I decided that it was worth the chance, and it turned out to be a great move for me, and so it's just, you can't ever give up. I mean, Jimmy Valvano, I mean, it's no truer words have ever been said, and that's it's just the way life is. I mean, like, to be quite honest, I mean, like in my life, from time to time, I've had, little bouts of depression and things like that. And I mean, like some days you feel like,
sure,
why do I want to live?
Sure.
I mean, and I've got every reason to live, but, at times, in spite of that, sometimes you feel that way. But like, I think to myself, once you get, if you don't get through that, you don't ever get to being back great again, and life's good again. So, I always feel blessed, and I always, like you said, I think, a lot of the, hopefully you have good people around you that keep telling you, don't give up, because sometimes that's all it takes is when you see somebody down, you can tell that they're not 100%, and you just walk up to them and say, you're going to be okay, hang in there, you're too good to, give up, don't do it, hang in there, and that can make a difference.
There's so much to be said for persistence.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So.
Well, awesome. You've had an incredible career in life, and inspiring today, just hearing your story. Any last things that we didn't touch on that you want to talk about?
No, I'm like I said, I've had a great career. I've been a great family. I've married a great woman, and I got 3 great kids, and that's a big part of my life now. It's just when I think of ever thinking of, like I said, giving up, I realized how lucky I was that I kept fighting to keep going on, and not I was, like I said, I was blessed. I mean, I can see people that have it way tougher than I ever did, and so I understand the tough times. But that's just, it's life is good, and it's a great thing to I think of when I think of all the experiences I've had, more than the success or the wins or whatever, I think of all the people I've met,
the relationships,
and the great people that inspired me, and that I can call my friends, and it's a lucky thing.
Was there a particular role model that stands out?
Well, as a jockey, I think I looked up to Braulio Baeza, because he was a tall guy, and I figured I loved how he, rode so low. He would kept his back real flat and rode low, and so here, this is reading about this guy, and then when I went to New York, it turned out his agent Lenny Goodman became my agent, because he was basically having weight problems and was about to retire, and ended up retiring. And then later on, he gave me a saddle, and that's the saddle I won the Triple Crown on.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. So, it's just kind of weird things happen to you, and it's you got to live through them to see it all happen.
Well, attitude is everything, isn't it?
It is. I mean, attitude is really everything. I think, when I think of myself, times that I've felt down and whatever, a lot of it is just my attitude. I've got out of kilter with how I'm thinking. I get down on the world, or it's easy to do. Get down on something, but when you see it all in the big picture of things, we're lucky to have the opportunity to to be alive.
Well, you've inspired a lot of people, and you've inspired us today. John and Chris, thoughts from the crowds? John, any questions come to mind?
Well, I do have a question, and it goes back to your racing Alydar, and you said your horse Affirmed really took off. Do horses respond to the competition, or do they need you to tell them you're in a race?
Well,
You better get moving.
Yeah, that's a great question. Some horses do respond to competition, and some don't. They're like people, right? Some love a good challenge, and some don't. When they get into a challenging, where they're challenged, they say, "Oh, I don't want any part of this." And but when you get a good horse like Affirmed, he was a great example. He would really dig in. When Alydar made him as good as he was, right? In most races, he would beat a claiming horse by a couple lengths, because once he got to the front, he just thought, I've done what I need to do, and he would relax. I mean, and that's why in the Derby I kept after him, even though he was winning fairly comfortably, because I knew Alydar would be coming. I didn't want him catching me asleep, and but like in the Preakness, when they really accelerated together, they were both fighting each other. It's like you could. I think one of the great riders at the time in the Belmont said it was like Moby Dick looking back at Ahab. Yeah, I mean, it was like you're killing me or I'm killing you. And the good ones that love the competition are the fun ones to ride, because you really just feel that they're going to give everything they've got. And literally that day in the winning picture in the Belmont, Affirmed, they wrapped those carnations around his neck, and his head was literally like, you knew he'd given it all. There wasn't. He had, he dug deep.
Wow. Chris, any questions?
I'm a horse racing fan now, so.
No kidding.
Glad to hear it.
Good. All right. Thank you so much. Super.
Yeah. Pleasure. Yeah.
Thank you.